And so I always like to also let people know that there's other options out there as well. So as Dean mentioned, we like to think of the totality of the home when we're talking to folks. So, that's where the planning really comes in, is sitting down and saying, where are the environmental impacts from what is happening within my home? So, everything from, you go into your garage and you see you've got a bunch of gas cans there for your lawnmowers and your weed whacker and your chainsaw and things like that. That's fossil fuels. It's not something we typically think about, but that's something that can be a low-cost fix if you go out there. Maybe you're not able to afford a new HVAC system, but you can go out there and you can get the electric lawnmower and you can start your journey of getting your home off fossil fuels and things like that. Also looking at things like induction stoves. Are you cooking with gas? Is your hot water heater with gas? Those are things that you can start to look at as they fail. You're able to replace those with one that's not specifically burning fossil fuels. And if you're running your home on renewables or you're purchasing renewables for it, that can be done in a truly sustainable manner. So we like to get people thinking about every single impact in their home and what they can do with that. Now, for a lot of the folks out there, you're working with your communities, you're working with your town boards, and you've got to make the change, you need to communicate that effectively to people. So that's kind of my thinking up front, is that planning, making the chart, making the list, doing the assessments, and then figuring out where you can do with what you can do with your budget. So in terms of communicating this to the public and to your different stakeholders, I'm sure a lot of folks out there have email lists. They might have social media pages. They talk with their town or village or county boards and executives. But really go out there and think, who are your constituents? What impact do you have and who can you reach? And then think about what's the best way to get that information to them in a way that's going to be useful. So a lot of times we think of these things as kind of one-offs. So we might work with somebody on, okay, we really want to promote home energy audits, or we really want to work on heat pumps, or we really want to work on a solarized campaign or something like that. And that's great, and we're going to get some good results from that. But I think we should all take it back one step and think, how can we engage people in an ongoing process about every single type of thing they can do in their home, because of the fact that a lot of people might be budget constrained, and there might be things that are, quick fixes that they can do now that get them thinking about it, that get them in that mindset, that get them planning more. Because sustainability and especially energy efficiency are one of those things where once it's in your head, you see it everywhere you go. I know. Anytime I go into a friend's house or something, or I go, into one of our facilities or another state's facilities, I'm always, I can't unsee some of the stuff that I've learned. And I think once we get people thinking through that mindset, they're going to see this stuff everywhere they look. They're going to see opportunity for lowering greenhouse gas emissions in their energy bills. So when you're thinking about how to communicate with folks at the state level, I can give you the example of what we've done with our Lunchtime Learning Webinar series. And so within DEC, we thought about, okay, how do we engage our staff on these topics? We know that there are staff that already want this information. And we thought about, okay, we have staff spread throughout the whole state. And we thought, well, we don't want to do it just in one office. We don't want to have to go office to office. So we started doing a webinar series, and we thought, if we're going to do a webinar series, why don't we open it up to other folks as well at other state agencies? So now we've got this promoted to all state employees at different agencies, and we do a different topic every month. So people know it's predictable. It's the second Tuesday of every month at noon. They can watch it on their lunch hour. It's a half hour, and kind of look at what's in the news and how does that apply to folks' lives. So we've covered most topics, everything from clean heating and cooling to solar, to textile recycling, to sustainable forestry products, sustainable holidays, you name it, we've kind of done that. And we've brought these people in and we're having an ongoing conversation with them. So I think if you can find a way to start that ongoing conversation instead of having those one-offs, that's where you're going to have the most success. The other thing that we've done with folks that I think has worked really well is we've looked at where can we influence others. So for example, we might have our team, of course, DEC, a lot of what we do is communicating this to the public, but what tools do we have at our disposal? So, what email lists do we have already established that we can get information out to? Where are we holding events already that we can engage with people? Where can we find people that might not be as engaged? And where can we get decision makers and folks with more influence to push our message out? So in our instance, it might be folks at the commissioner, it might be folks at other agencies that are high-level folks pushing it down to their staff. In the towns and villages and communities, it might be members of your board, it might be others. So if you can kind of think about how to holistically create this conversation with folks in your town and give them those types of resources and answers, I think you're going to get really good outcomes. Because as I said, once you get people thinking through that, once they get the plan going, that's where you're really going to make the difference on every single topic that we're going to talk about today. So hopefully those are some helpful examples. And with that, I want to pass it back to Dean.
Unmute. There we go. Thanks, Brendan. That's all good information about how to get our citizens behind our efforts here at municipal, county, and state levels. It all comes down to the individuals, and the more we can engage them, the better. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Josh Stack now, again, he's involved with NYSERDA's New York Stretch program, and he's going to talk about that and how we can get that established in our communities.
Great. So thank you, everybody, for coming today. I'm really excited to be here, especially for an association of conservation-focused communities and stakeholders, because really we're a code consultant for NYSERDA New York Stretch, which we'll talk about today. But we're also a home builder, and we've been building single-family homes for a very long time, doing a lot of multi-family residential verification work also. And we see our homes as essential portions of habitat. They really do integrate with the natural environment so irreconcilably that you cannot separate the building ecology from the surrounding natural ecology, and the ecological health from building health and occupant health. And so would you like me to go ahead, Dean, and put the slides up then? Or
I'm ready to do that, but if you have it too, you're welcome to.
Oh, please go ahead if you could.
Okay.
So we'll just talk really briefly about what New York Stretch is, and just to echo Brendan's really fantastic points, to look at the house as a system, but not only a house as a system, but a system of systems. So how each of the different components of the home actually integrate with each other, and then with the surrounding ecology. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So the big question we always get first is, what is a stretch code? And a stretch code is intended to be about one code cycle more efficient than the current energy code. It's a readily adoptable, more strict local energy code. It's more efficient than the current New York State 2020 energy code. It's explicitly authorized by Article 11 of the New York State Energy Law. Any community can adopt a more stringent local energy code, and in adopting it, they can actually begin to interpret it, which is a really nice way to begin to structure a local code enforcement program in an optimal way for that community, to figure out how you'd like to allocate responsibility between a code officer or third-party inspection agencies about building thermal envelope and some of the performance testing. And so what New York Stretch is really is an overlay to the current code. So it doesn't replace the code. It just modifies certain sections of the code to be more energy efficient and higher performing. As a builder, I can say it's based on proven technology, systems, and research, such as the Energy Star program that's been in existence for more than 20 years. And as a builder, we've been building houses that meet or exceed New York Stretch for probably 20 years. And so that's really how it meets the market at little to no additional cost. And we can talk about that for anybody who's interested. Again, it's readily adoptable, utilizes existing code enforcement system. So it also gives municipalities more flexibility how they'd like to structure and administer their code enforcement program to create higher quality buildings and housing stock in the community. Next slide, please. And so New York Stretch basically tries to meet that next code cycle. It is not the next energy code, but many of the provisions hopefully will be integrated into the next code cycle. So this is just kind of the idea, if we're on that glide path to zero, particularly as it's codified into New York law through the Climate Leadership and Climate Protection Act, New York Stretch is a really fantastic tool for communities to consider how to meet those climate goals. As Brendan said, that critical path for any energy efficiency audit is essential to see the system, to understand what to do first. And that's what New York Stretch also focuses on. For example, you want to look at your air barrier, your primary air control layer, before you think about new windows, because every dollar you invest in an enhanced air barrier and enhanced thermal building envelope is going to pay back much more than perhaps other measures might. But when you look at the building as a system, you can identify what work should be done first, coming from the principle of first do no harm, and avoid some of the difficulties that occurred during the 70s with the weatherization program, where the whole idea of sick building syndrome emerged because of this sort of work. And what current practice does is look at the building as a system, do no harm, and really emphasize human health. So we'll talk about that with New York Stretch a bit. If you could go to the next slide, please. So benefits. The energy benefits in New York Stretch are meaningful. NYSERDA has commissioned some modeling on how much the commercial and residential provisions of New York Stretch will save. Roughly about 11% on the commercial side and about 19% on the residential side. And so the energy benefits themselves are significant and measurable, but what we as a builder and a code consultant really appreciate are the non-energy benefits, such as healthy buildings, more durable and resilient buildings, and then also the climate benefits that these buildings can provide communities. When you look at the healthy building science, for example, we now spend more than 90% of our life indoors, with about 60% of that time spent in one room, our bedrooms. And so when you look at the chemicals that are present in our buildings today, and some of the code requirements for ventilation, for example, or airtightness of the building envelope, healthy building becomes really, really essential to think about. And if you go to the next slide, I'll just go with a few case studies to close it out. So on the residential side, for example, New York Stretch enhances the thermal envelope, your walls, floors, and roof. It enhances your ventilation. And it not only does it by design, but you actually have to have it performance tested in the field to know that what you built is functioning as intended and as designed and as required by code. So the verification aspect of New York Stretch really enhances and builds on the current code verification that's required. Not unfamiliar to me as a builder, I actually welcome it when a third party can come in and test my buildings, because then it's not just what I say about how my buildings are performing, but it's what that third party inspector has verified. So here is a photo from 2004, a house we built, which was actually the first LEED Gold house in New York at the time. We built it. That's how much wood we took out of the walls. That's 86 2x6 by 10-foot studs. Wow. At that time, it cost about $500, but R1 per inch. So when you take that out of the wall assembly, that's like a large door to the outside, which makes your home more energy efficient, brings moisture, vapor, all sorts of durability concerns, potential indoor air quality concerns if it's connected to a basement or a garage where we store all those fossil fuel power equipment that Brendan referenced, the chainsaws and the paint and the bad chemicals you would put in a basement or garage come into the house through those sort of holes and openings. So you take that out of the thermal envelope, replace it with insulation, and you've got a higher performing house over the lifetime of the system. So for any first cost, when you look at New York Stretch, today's dollars, that's about $2,000 worth of lumber and another $400 or $500 I didn't have to pay our framer to assemble into the wall. And when you do that, save about $2,500, you've just purchased a whole house mechanical ventilation system that's healthier than what code would allow. And so we've provided a higher, and New York Stretch provides a healthier, higher performing house to a homeowner at no extra first cost if the builder is doing his or her job correctly and thinking about how to manage construction. So we're at a conservation committee audience here, so the ecological impact is even more immense. I'll go off script for a second, but when we looked at this in 2009 at the height of the market before it collapsed, if you take just this much wood out of the wall of each home built, the 1.9 million houses built in 2009 in America, you would save 30,000 acres of forest each year from having to be harvested and converted into lumber for these homes. And you think about the ecological function and services that those forests provide to us, because as a builder, no code provides fresh air, drinkable water, or managed waste. We rely on the natural world to do that. And to the extent we can minimize the disruption of our housing stock on that natural resource flow and become more efficient using tools like New York Stretch, the easier it is to ensure healthy, natural living communities and ecosystems for all of our residents and for ourselves. So really simple to do. Next slide, please. This is another one. This is one of our projects just a couple years ago where, certainly we debate the benefits of closed cell spray foam insulation. It has its purposes. It has a high embodied carbon to it, but, we can talk about that if anyone's interested. But when you move that silver duct pipe out of the way, that's what the insulation firm had missed. And so unless there was an inspection there, if we hadn't done this ourselves, code officers are overworked, I think, in many ways. The amount of information they're required to know and manage and enforce is really amazing when you look at the extent of codes that they need to be competent and expert in. So code officer may have caught that during the installation pre-drywall inspection as well, but we caught it and said that's missing insulation. So that would have been a point of failure, because as we make our homes more airtight as the code requires, all points of failure, all airflow would have gone to that point. So all moisture would have condensed there. Possibly mold would have formed. It would have been a cold area, a cold room in the house. Thermal comfort is actually thermal health. When you think about it, comfort is it's more than just comfort in codes. It's actually health. The research shows it pretty clearly. So you have to go back and insulate that, and you catch those sort of things, and that reduces energy consumption and global greenhouse gas emissions as well. So next one, please. Here's another one on a multifamily affordable project we did as a verifier. The sheetrockers came through and forgot to cut a supply duct in the wall. So you see the sheetrocker back with a saw to open up the sheetrock to put the duct in. And if we hadn't come to performance test that duct work, which New York Stretch requires, not only as designed, but as installed, there would have been warm air or cold air blowing against the back side of that wall for the life of the building, making it more inefficient. Could have caused durability issues with moisture and mold at that point. But either way, these are the sort of things that New York Stretch is intended to catch as you go forward. Next slide, please. And so I think this might be my last slide. And again, getting to that bigger benefit of codes in New York and above energy codes like New York Stretch, when the National Institute of Building Science and FEMA and International Code Council looked at it, this is specifically for natural disturbances, and there's some really great nice sort of research I would point people to that is connected to New York Stretch about climate resilience strategies in New York, completed by the University of Buffalo and Nick Reykjavik there. But $11 for every $1 invested in adopting the most recent code. New York's done that with the 2018 I-Code, so we're already at a great standard. So a lot of questions we receive is, hey, if we've already adopted the most recent code, why do we need New York Stretch other than the climate impacts? And the answer is, if you adopt an above code program like New York Stretch, even if there is a small incremental first cost, $4 returns for every dollar invested in that building. So it enhances not only the ecological health and the climate adaptation of a community, but it also enhances the economic development of that community as well by investing in these above code programs. So with that, I would just say thank you. Would love to hear any questions, and back to Dean.
Great, thanks a lot, Josh. That was a very in-depth presentation, really showing some.
Dean, you're muted.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thanks, Josh. That was a really good illustration of some of the little snafus that we can get by adopting good code and good code enforcement, especially with the New York Stretch available now. We're going to move on to Lauren. Lauren's, as I mentioned, the Director of Energy Smart Homes Campaign for Sustainable Westchester. My community, Terrytown, I'm the co-chair of the Environmental Council here, and I'm involved with the Tri-Village River Towns Energy Smart Homes initiative that we just sort of started a few months ago, and is going to continue through next year, part of next year. And we're in the phase of trying to promote that to our residents in the community now. So Lauren's going to talk about that program and where it's going to go from here. Okay, go ahead, Lauren.
Okay, thanks, Steve. How's this looking so far? Yeah, you see the
perfect.
timer?
That's perfect. Yep.
Okay, well, hi everyone. I'm Lauren Burris. As Dean said, I work at Sustainable Westchester, and I've been lucky to be working with him for the past couple of months on our Energy Smart Homes campaign. I have some slides in here that talk about the technologies that we're promoting through the campaign, and I also have some slides that talk about how we implement this program from a sustainability group's point of view, since this is the NISAC conference. And before I forget, I just want to say a big thanks to Dean and Haven and Bob and Simon. I know how hard they've been working to bring this conference together, and I think they really have accomplished something really special here. And thanks to everybody for tuning in as well. So Sustainable Westchester is a nonprofit organization. We're comprised of our member municipalities. Pretty much every municipality in the county is a member, including Westchester County itself. And it's our goal to enable sustainable programming for the municipalities and for their residents. So we offer a whole suite of programs to people looking to lower their impact on the planet. Today I'm going to be talking about our electrification solution of clean heating and cooling, our residential energy efficiency and clean heating and cooling campaign is called Energy Smart Homes. But if you are interested in community solar, our Westchester Power Program is a community choice aggregation program. We've got resources for electric vehicles. The virtual power plant is a solar panels paired with a backup battery, a demand response program, zero waste information, and some sustainable landscaping info as well. So feel free to reach out to me or Sustainable Westchester after the conference if you have any questions or would like to learn more. So I think we kind of all touched upon how New York State has very aggressive, nation-leading carbon reduction goals, and even though these goals kind of seem kind of lofty, or how do they connect to our daily life, when we think about our own impact on the planet, our own heating and cooling of our homes, it directly correlates to how we're going to achieve these amazing reduction goals. So you'll see on the screen the 40% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, 85% by 2050. That won't be achieved unless we all take massive steps to change the way we are living our lives, and especially when it comes to how we're heating and cooling our buildings. There's an amazing statistic about how many homes need to be converted to have us reach these goals, and it's something like 400 homes a day, including every single weekend until the next 30 years if we're going to make this happen. So certainly there's a lot of work to be done, and that's a good thing for our economy and for people's homes. So while much of the solutions I'm talking about today are in Westchester County, the New York State Clean Heat Program exists across New York State, and there are nonprofits and community-based organizations helping different counties or municipalities with this program. So if you have questions about anywhere else in the state, if you have another house, if you have a friend or a family member in Albany or Buffalo, we can help connect you to this network for sure. But in Westchester, the Energy Smart Homes program is brought to us by a partnership of NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research Development Authority, and Sustainable Westchester. So as we referenced before, a huge amount of carbon emissions are coming from our buildings, 32% in New York State to be exact. And when you drill down into how much energy we're using in our homes, almost 75% of the energy that we're using in our homes is for heating and cooling. So our Energy Smart Homes program is able to help homeowners via email and by phone. One of the people that does a lot of homeowner helping is on the call right now, Amy. She's an associate at Sustainable Westchester, but I'm so thankful for her helping with everything. And we have one of our partner contractors on the line too. I think I saw Vinay in the audience from Dandelion. They are one of our recommended contractors with the program. So we help people find contractors, access rebate and incentive information. And a really great opportunity right now comes with the Clean Energy Communities program. So if you're not familiar with Clean Energy Communities, it's a great way to kind of get involved with clean heating and cooling because you can really appeal to your municipality. There's a good carrot of a $5,000 grant that can be achieved if you get 10 projects completed in your community. So it's a great way to try to convince people why not have a clean heating and cooling campaign in your area. And in Westchester County, Sustainable Westchester can help. So the next few slides are definitely more directed at people that are serving on their sustainability committees. The way that we bring the Energy Smart Homes program to an area is a partnership with our installers, the municipality, the volunteers, and also the customers. So by combining these different stakeholder groups, we're able to really launch a robust marketing and community education program in the selected area. So just to mention, for example, right now, we're doing the Energy Smart Homes River Towns campaign. So we have Tarrytown, Sleepy Hollow, and Irvington working together to bring this information to their residents. They have selected a group of partner installers. Sustainable Westchester is here to help implement the program. And then the volunteers are the ones helping to have webinars and be at the farmers market, really sharing this information around town. So just some ideas and inspiration. These pictures were taken from a Heat Smart or Energy Smart Home house tour. We had a day where we had opened up 3 homes. People were able to come inside and tour local people's technologies. And the last 2 iterations of this we've done virtually because this was pre-COVID, but having examples from local homeowners and local testimonials is a really important piece of our program. And have a little bit of information about the technologies. I don't think I'll go too far in depth with the programs just because you might already know it, but just some basic information if you are looking to do this work in your own home or if you're looking to maybe have a campaign. One of the most important aspects of the program is the home energy efficiency. So there are a lot of opportunities for homeowners to access support from NYSERDA to have a home energy assessment. Home energy assessment takes a look at how the house is using energy. A contractor will come in and do a series of diagnostic testing. Usually this assessment is free. Typically a few contractors do charge and then they can put that money back if you choose to go forward. But not only are there incentives and rebates from NYSERDA and New York State, the comfort level of insulating and air sealing your home really is felt on day 1. So a lot of people even say, wow, after the installation or after the whole job was done, my house is quieter now and my house is less drafty. So certainly there's a lot of benefits to be gained. Feeling uncomfortable in the wintertime is not the best. And slides pretty quickly. There's rebates and incentives between $500 to $4,000 for the average income earner in New York State. There's even more incentives from New York State for people that receive enhanced our property tax exemption or others that may be benefiting from HEAP or SNAP recipients. There are programs such as Empower that could be really impactful in helping people to afford this work and reduce the energy burden. So when we talk about clean heating and cooling, we're talking about getting rid of your existing fossil fuel system. So no more gas, no more oil, and you're switching to a heat pump. And the heat pumps can come in different ways. Air source heat pumps have a few different applications. There's a ducted and a ductless solution depending on what works for your home. They use electricity to run, so again, no more fossil fuels. And then if you're part of Westchester Power, a community choice aggregation program, or you have your own ESCO, and you're sourcing renewable energy to power your home, you can consider yourself 100% fossil fuel free in your heating and cooling if you move to a heat pump. And the rebates and incentives in Westchester County via CoE are very significant right now. So really it's a great time to explore moving to a heat pump. And we recognize that the timing needs to be right to do a project, a ground source heat pump or air source heat pump. So we recommend people looking into it so they're prepared when their system is ready to be switched out, that they know what they want to do. You want to avoid that emergency replacement. Oh man, we need a new boiler tomorrow. You want to be prepared for the switch so that you're ready to change your heating and cooling. So ground source is another great solution. This is for homes that have ductwork or are wanting to install it. And there's a lot of benefits. It's the most efficient technology possible. The rebates are just amazing. And I like to show this picture. This is Jen and Katona. They had their old air conditioning system right here where this bush was a few years ago. She switched to geothermal, and then they gained this space in their yard. So with geothermal, there's no outdoor equipment, which is really nice. And if you're wondering if your house would be a good candidate for geothermal, and you're in Westchester, you can use the NYSERDA tool, Westchester Geo Possibilities. You can type in your address. You can do it right now. It's just geopossibilities.ny.gov, and they'll tell you if you're a good candidate for geothermal. And they'll also give you some estimated savings. And if you do get to this page when you're looking for your own home, please remember that the savings are going to be even higher because this calculator does not take into account the rebates and incentives from CoE. And lastly, the heat pump hot water heaters, technology we promote as part of Energy Smart Homes. You know, it's often people replace their hot water heater more often than their heating and cooling system. So it's a great piece of technology. It's 2 to 3 times more efficient than a typical hot water heater, and has a really fast payback period. And actually, Dean has, well, a lot of this equipment in his home, but we just filmed a heat pump hot water heater video at Dean's house, and we showed it the other day. So maybe I'll put the link in the chat to that video once I'm done sharing my screen. And here's my contact information if people have questions, and I think that's it. So I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah. Thanks.
And I will unmute myself. Lauren, thanks a lot. That was a really quick but thorough introduction and explanation of Energy Smart Homes, and also it was interesting that the slide you showed of all the upstate programs as well. I just didn't realize it was it was covering the state in a lot of different communities up there. Mostly using the Heat Smart name that was the original incarnation of Energy Smart Homes. Okay, I guess we're going to ask for questions from participants or audience members. And I see Chris moving up to microphone 1 there, so go ahead, Chris. You have to unmute yourself.
I got it.
Yeah.
So I have a question. I live in a co-op, and we lost our heating and hot water system with IDA. And they're tinkering with a temporary replacement. And, we have kind of a very conservative board. But I'm wondering if the heat pump hot water system is something that you can get for, let's say, a 75 unit building. Or is it just, they're smaller units?
Where do you live, Chris?
Bronxville.
Oh, Bronxville. Okay. We have a commercial clean heating and cooling program. So on the commercial side of things, the rebates and incentives are different. So I think you would probably want to look into, there's different solutions, and do you want to put your email in the chat and I can connect you to Rachel?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I have actually attended some of those. And but our building had just upgraded its system and wasn't interested. But now, obviously, since we lost the system, we have to be interested. So I do know how to reach them, but thanks. That's helpful. So just go to the commercial line, and there are rebates for commercial installations as well.
Yep. Definitely.
Great, thanks, Chris. At Mike B, we have Michael Hartner. Go ahead with your question, Michael. And again, you'll have to unmute yourself. I think maybe I can unmute you. Here we go. Nope, I can't do that. You'll have to do it yourself. Yeah, you'll find the little microphone on your.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have.
There you go.
I'm not sure how you thought I did. Oh, I see.
That worked. We can hear you now. Oh, you have to go up to the microphone though to continue.
I think he was just walking around.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. I see at Mike C there, Liz, you'll have to move to microphone 1 in order to be heard. And unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello. Thank you for all the great information. 2 questions. 1, can you put the web address for the Geo Possibilities site in the chat? That went by too quickly for me to write down. And can you talk, Lauren, a little bit about insulation? Because I know there's a lot of controversy about the insulation itself, or Josh could probably talk about that as well, I guess. Anybody could probably talk about that. Because it concerns me about the chemicals and that piece of it.
I can start, and then Josh, do you want to fill in? Okay, so I think the concerns around insulation are mostly around the spray foam insulation. A lot of people are concerned about the global warming potential used in the propellant of the spray, and also people are concerned about the off-gassing. And for some projects, if you're going to do spray foam, people do recommend perhaps not sleeping in the house that night to let the off gases happen. But as far as I think more common insulation is cellulose, and they have different applications, dense packed cellulose, and that's made of recycled newspaper, borax, and it's a very harmless substance. So certainly deciding what's best for your home is a good, there's choices there. Josh, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, fantastic summary, Lauren. I agree. Always follow manufacturer installation instructions for any spray foam product. And typically they have a requirement to be out of the house for at least 24 hours. The application you've ever done at least 24 hours. There's some evidence that you can develop a sensitivity to some of the off-gassing. It's a great product. So I don't mean to disparage it at all. We've utilized it significantly in the past. And really what it is a manufacturing process on a job site. So that mix at the gun needs to be perfect as applied. There's ways to verify it as you go through the installation process to confirm that it's installed properly, just like you would any type of installation. In terms of the chemicals involved, each of the insulation products have different chemical attributes and concerns. So it's really important to look at the information for each product to understand which product might be best for which use, particularly existing buildings. Good resources for that I can put in the chat, but beyond that, any experienced home improvement contractor like Lauren mentioned and Brendan is really going to understand that and be able to make good recommendations.
Great, thanks, Josh. I want to go back to Mike B now. Vinay from Dandelion Geothermal is at number 1. Go ahead.
Thanks, Dean. I just wanted to jump in. First of all, thanks again for letting us be a part of this, and thank you all for the work you do. And 2 things. I wanted to call out, Lauren, the work you're doing in Sustainable Westchester has been amazing. And obviously, Dean, working with Terrytown and the River Towns, we've been a partner with some other contractors as well, and it's been working really well. My question for all of you is, as I've been meeting folks in this conference from outside of Westchester and going to different town, conservation committee leads, a lot of the feedback I've been getting is, hey, we're not allowed to work directly with you because you're a for-profit company, and like, which I totally get, right? Like, but obviously we're part of the solution, right? Like, we're trying to help. So any advice on how to get, I don't want to say get around that, because towns have these mandates where they don't want to work with for-profit companies, but at the end of the day, we're also here to help, right? And I'm not just talking for me, I'm talking about our competitors who are our frenemies, right? Like, we want them to succeed. Obviously, they succeed, we all succeed, and us as well. So just any guidance on how to go about that would be greatly appreciated, because I've heard it from multiple like people from different towns, and it's the same feedback separately. So thank you.
I mean, we have had that pushback too, and I even in our marketing, when I put the municipality seal on something, I don't put the contractors' logos on that piece of paper. I try to separate them, but certainly I think the municipalities are limited in their partnership in the sense that they don't want to show favoritism, they don't want to pick the wrong contractor. But with Sustainable Westchester, we have an RFP process that we bring the contractors on, they sign a legal agreement, and there's like a layer of protection from that. But I think perhaps in municipalities or counties that don't have a Sustainable Westchester, perhaps saying that it's part of the NYSERDA program, that it's part of the utility program now, that something there could be the door to open it, that they're promoting their utility. But yeah, I've seen this problem, and I don't have a good solution.
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg, right? So, but yeah, I appreciate that, and I guess we'll keep trying. But you know, obviously we're here, and we're here to help. So. You know, we can't hit those New York stretch goals. We can't hit the 2030 goals, right, without us and plenty of other contractors. So again, I speak for all of us, not just for Dandelion. But anyway, thank you. Great stuff.
Yeah, you know, the RFP is a piece of paper that we have. So if other municipalities wanted to use that, I don't see what would stop them as a basis instead of reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, I would support that. You know, from a New York stretch perspective, one of the feedback or concerns municipalities have is the additional first cost that a more stringent local energy code would add to the cost of a new home or a new commercial building. And some of that cost is the required performance testing or field inspections. And so from our perspective as a company that does air tightness testing, when that requirement came into the New York State Energy Code in 2016, you know, we would charge a fee, go do the air tightness test for code purposes. But then the market solved the problem at no cost. Insulation firms, HVAC firms realized that they could integrate that service into their proposal. And as long as the authority with jurisdiction, the code officer, was okay with that third party completing that service, it suddenly became a no-cost test to the builder to comply, which eliminated that first cost criticism. And so I'm a big believer in allowing the market to work, even though, you know, we lost it was a small amount of what we did, but it was nice to see that business disappear because it meant the market was starting to understand what air tightness in buildings was. So it was really good to see and work with insulation firms that started to understand what a grade 1 installation was and why it was important and how to verify it visually, and then also how to do the air tightness test. So I think, you know, there's some sort of gatekeeping function that credentials have or an RFP response might provide, but we've always been a believer in as part of a different local Heat Smart campaign up our way, allow more contractors to participate. The more the better, the more information to the homeowner, the more options the homeowner has, and not having to select from pre-approved contractors is really a benefit because it gives the owner the transparency and the control to make the decision on who to go with. So that's one way we've looked at it, and with our recommendations is to bring as many firms into the program that can meet those minimum qualification requirements, and then allow the market to solve that extra first cost problem in a way that delivers the same quality result.
Thank you, Josh. It's helpful.
That's
Thanks
great.
again, Lauren, for everything you're doing in Westchester.
Yeah, thanks to all of you answering those questions, important ones. I don't see anybody else at the mic. I know, Lauren, your colleague Amy was there at one point, but she ran off. But she must have figured that you answered whatever she was interested in bringing up. I actually have a question. I don't know, maybe this is for Brendan. You know, we stress that the home energy audit is the best way for people to find out what they need to do with their homes. But I remember seeing some online tools a while back that if somebody's short of actually having an in-person audit done, something that would let you put in the type of windows you have, the age of your house, the wall and floor area, and something like that, to come up with an idea of whether or not you have a situation where you need to look further at your insulation values, let's say, or the type of heating system or cooling system that you have. Do you have any suggestions as to online tools that people could use for that? Or have you heard of anything?
Yeah, I don't have any specific ones that I've used before promoted for folks, but I know there's a number of ones out there. Some are more comprehensive than others, and that's probably a really good place to get started for a lot of folks. You know, approaching a contractor with an energy audit can be a little intimidating at first, especially if you're not sure of the programs that are out there and other things. So I think that's a good first place to go, is to look up some of those tools and calculators, and that also gets into the planning that I mentioned of, you know, figuring out where your home's at and getting that baseline.
Sure. I mean, if you can calculate the number of therms per degree day or something like that you need for heating, and then you compare that with what you actually use, you know, then you can get a handle on whether or not you have insulation problems or air infiltration issues. I know I have, the windows in my home are pretty old. They're probably nearly 40 years old now, but they were good quality windows, 7/8 inch, you know, thermal pane, except that the little insulation strips along the side are starting to deteriorate. And, you know, I don't really want to replace the windows just to get that spruced up. So, you know, I'll be looking for ideas about improving the ones you have rather than replacing. Everybody wants to replace them. There's a big business in replacing windows, but I don't think I need them replaced, just to have them, you know, brought back to original, you know, capabilities or performance. The other thing, oh, sorry, you had a question.
Well, no, I could just say about windows. Certainly, the window manufacturers have been really good at promoting replacing your windows as the number one thing to do, but really you get a lot bigger bang for your buck with insulation. The R value that you can achieve is much higher, and then, you know, if you're comfortable with it, I see in the wintertime a lot of people put even that plastic over their windows, and you spray it with like a hair dryer. That kind of solves what you need for the wintertime. So
yeah, that's not a bad approach too, as long as you don't need to open that window for the winter.
Yeah, ventilation gets to be critical. Lauren and Dean, you guys are absolutely right with that. I mean, so there's a critical path, and there's a lot of good websites to go to think from a principal's perspective. If you can't find someone to do an air tightness test, put a large fan and depressurize the house to exaggerate the air leaks, to walk around and just put your hand to feel those drafts. You know, the first place to start is always a pressure boundary at that attic plane, because most residential buildings because it's the laws of physics essentially at work. The stack effect, where, you know, hot air rises and out and up through wherever that air barrier is at your ceiling level, whether it's on an attic floor or the roof deck. So that's always the first place to start, is to look at your air control layer and understand where your holes are in that. Because if you can find the holes in your air control layer by looking for cobwebs, for example, or discolored insulation that is moving through it, like fiberglass works as a filter and takes, you know, pollutants out of the air as air moves through it. So the building tells you where to start. And that's, again, what any good home auditor is going to understand before they knock on the door. They'll see 5 to 10 things wrong with that building. Icicles under the eave, a real significant indication of heat loss and freeze thaw. And so really it is, it's that air controller layer first is the cheapest to stop that hot air from rising and escaping, to really, you know, put a cap on your house, and then to work down to the box fills to do the same thing, essentially. And from there, you start to think about where you have discontinuous insulation, with the best practice being a continuous thermal and air control layer that are essentially always connected to each other. And the way to think about it with envelope consulting is you take your finger on your house and start underneath your basement slab or your wherever it might be, and trace your way up the wall section. And anywhere you have to take your finger off that drawing or in your mind, your house, then you've got a weak point. And those weak points are floor to wall, wall to ceiling, or where you have two different types of materials that meet. And if you have to lift your finger because your insulation, your air control layers aren't continuous there, that's a problem. And then you go to those points first. And I agree with Lauren completely. Windows are typically 4th, 5th, or 6th on the list until you can work through. And so there's a real simple process. I can probably put some resources in the chat of where to start. There's an amazing amount of free building science information out there that both New York State and the federal government, the EPA, and Department of Energy have created. The Building America program is a really great resource to start to think about how to look at your houses. So those are some good places to start. I'll put in the chat, but there's a really well-defined path to follow when you do this sort of analysis for your houses that people can do without a professional in some cases, or most cases.
Sure, and if any of you want to, aside from putting things in the chat, send me any kind of documents you'd like to put in our, have me put in our resource library that we have for people to access directly. That's a possibility too. So you can just email me. I think you all have my email address there. Yeah, and I like to think of the attic and the roof of the house as sort of being the blanket on your bed in a way. I mean, you can. There's a couple of ways you can feel warm when you're in bed. You can put an electric blanket in or an electric heating pad, but it's actually best if you have insulation on top, because that's, like you say, the heat rises. And so, putting a blanket on your house is a really good idea. I did that recently to my house. I had the attic re-insulated with cellulose, and the upper floor of my mansard roof home all insulation blown in the walls, and that really made a difference, for sure. Okay.
Can I?
Sure, go ahead, Lauren.
My question's for Brendan. I'm happy to put a face to your name because I have seen that Lunchtime Webinar series, and I think it's so great. So I'm wondering if maybe, could you put a link in the chat? Like, I've seen that page before that has the inventory of all the previous webinars. It's so great. I try to watch them, like, to catch up on the ones from a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah, definitely. I'll put a link to that in the chat so that folks can access that. And we do have them all recorded there. And actually, a lot of them are on the topics that have been discussed here today. So, yeah, it's a good starting point for folks.
And I'm wondering, like, could I share that video series, like, with county employees? Like, how can we bring that to more people?
Yeah, if you'd like to. Yeah, it's right there on the Green New York website. So it is available to the public. They can go on there and they can find that. So yeah, feel free to share the links to that page. We also update it about every 6 months with the next 6 months topics. So you'll also see what we have coming up as well, and folks can register for those.
Okay, this is great. I'm going to close out this session because in 1 minute, the closing remarks for this conference are going to be in the auditorium, and John Rose is going to be filling in for Simon from NISAC. So I want to go and listen to that myself. So thank you all for your contributions here. This has been great, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks, everybody.